Hello everyone, I'm really excited to be bringing you a new series, a very long series, and one that will, I'm sure, it's new, it's novel, it's innovative, it's going to be awesome for chess players. So, without further ado, let's begin. Chess patterns. Before I define what chess patterns are, I will answer the question why we should study these patterns. So, um, patterns are this idea came to me like 5 6 years ago because I was thinking like there are so many things I've learned as I was getting stronger in chess, and I noticed that no one covers them. Like I see no one mentioning these things, like these little tidbits of information. Sometimes I scour the internet to find like some random source, some video here and there. I finally find something new. So it's very tedious this way, and I felt like there should be a way to just get a shortcut, create some shortcut, have some path that's not as torturous as the one I went through. So that's where this idea came. The point is that before I strictly define chess patterns, basically chess patterns are like any thing that repeats in chess. Like some mates are of course patterns, and any structure you see sometimes, like the bishop fianchetto can be considered a pattern. Like if you don't, maybe your chess education involves maybe playing a lot of games, and maybe you're someone who doesn't go often on the internet and stuff like that, and maybe if for the first year you play chess, you play a lot, you play in your neighborhood, and the neighborhood players are strong but they don't talk much. They're like let's say 1800, but they don't talk much, and none of them fianchetto. So you're never going to find out about the fianchetto if you don't think about it as well. And maybe you do think about it, and then you think you're a genius. You've discovered something new, but no, it's been there all along. And just because your chess education followed a specific path, that's why you weren't able to pick up on this idea. So that's why we need chess patterns. They reduce the time you spend on learning. So it's just a shortcut. It's just a shortcut, and many of these patterns you almost cannot find anywhere else. So that was my idea, and yeah, that's why I'm so excited to bring this series finally, to finally be able to spread the series. All right. So and by the way, of course, patterns, as we all know, are the hallmark of strong players. Strong players have a lot of chess patterns in their brain. That's why, like in Blitz and Bullet, they're able to find the moves so quickly. And this is a separate discussion concerning chess psychology and chunking and all of that stuff. That's not for this video, but this is something to keep in mind. Okay, next slide. What exactly are chess patterns? A pattern is something that repeats, something that recurs, and this is exactly what chess patterns are. They're any structure like the fianchetto structure, for example, or an entire position, or a sequence of moves that recurs frequently enough for it to be labeled a pattern. Like if some kind of rare move is played by a grandmaster and whatever, it's amazing. You study it, you keep it in mind, but likely it's not going to become a pattern because it's very rare for a reason. So patterns are things that recur, and that's why you get really strong when you learn patterns, because you're learning about something that covers a lot of games, that recurs often, that happens a lot. And I should mention that chess patterns is perhaps a misnomer, and there's a lot of discussion on that, about that on the interwebs. An excellent article was written on chess.com by Vic Hansen. He wrote a very nice article about like why the term chess pattern doesn't make a lot of sense. And while I do agree with his point, I'm not going to name the series chess structures or whatever. It just makes far less it has far less appeal and makes far less sense. So check out the article, it's very good, but it's a philosophical point and not very relevant to our videos. But of course, as someone who always searches for the truth, it was important for me to include this. Okay, so let us let us further explore these chess patterns. So let's say you have this queen c2 bishop d3 pattern or piece configuration, and I'll just move over to the next slide. So this is the queen c2 bishop d3 pattern, and let's return to the previous slide. So this configuration and all chess patterns should evoke certain feelings or memories. If you're someone who didn't learn about the pattern beforehand, like you aren't watching these videos, so you'll remember something maybe painful or something maybe quite happy, quite a happy memory. You might have that. So this is what these kinds of patterns, these kinds of configurations, this is what they should evoke, these kinds of feelings or memories. So let's say you lose a bad game where your opponent is able to make use of your queen c2 bishop d3 configuration. They're able to exploit it somehow, and we'll see how in the next sentence. Of course, you've already read it, but yeah. If they're able to exploit that some way, you'll have a bad memory, and then when the pattern creeps up, you remember, hey, what if this move works here? So I need to be careful. And against this queen c2 bishop d3, knight b4 is always the threat you should be careful of, because it just wins the light squared bishop. Winning the bishop pair is usually good, especially the light squared bishop in the situations where queen c2 bishop d3 is usually played. When you have this kind of memory, you have this bad feeling that you lost one time because your opponent played knight b4 against your queen c2 bishop d3. You think, hey, maybe I can play a3 and prevent knight b4. So let's go to the position actually. Like here in this position, maybe you play a3 and just prevent knight b4. So this is how chess patterns work. They should remind you of something. There's something immediate that you should think of when you get the pattern, and then there are some other things you should consider, and then you have to consider the pattern in the position as a whole. Okay, so what do strong players know, and why is this series so important, this series about chess patterns? So you always hear this, I've seen this idea before. And many patterns are present in strong players' memories and mind, but they're not aware that they know them. Like you might show a player this kind of configuration, queen c2 bishop d3, and you might tell them like, what square, when I tell you queen c2 bishop d3, what do you think of? They might say, oh yeah, knight b4. You ask them how, and they're like, I've seen the idea before. So but then you tell them like, show me all the patterns you know, and they'll show you like maybe 5, maybe 10, but they have in their mind perhaps thousands, tens of thousands. So yeah, that's a very important point I wanted to make. And this explains it further. So for example, in the reti, you get and actually I should have put the accent aigu on the reti, but sorry for that. Okay, so yeah, like queen a8, when I tell I ask a beginner like queen a8, what does that mean? They just think, okay, queen a8, whatever. It means nothing to me. But when you tell that to a strong player, perhaps they might remember, oh yeah, queen a8, sometimes you play that with, you have the bishop on b7, and sometimes you play it like in the reti maneuver, you go queen a7 and all of that good stuff. Yeah, I kind of remember that. Yeah, so actually the reti maneuver doesn't include the queen a7, but you get my point. So queen a8, and yeah, like bishop b4 in the opening, you ask a beginner, what does that mean? Okay, the bishop comes to b4. And I'm reminded of that funny clip in Practical Jokers. What does that mean? If any of you guys know that. Great show. One of the most brilliant comedy shows. Anyway, so bishop b4, what does that mean? Like, the beginner won't know. Like, they might remember some game with bishop b4. Oh yeah, I pinned the knight. Yeah. But like a strong player, they'll tell you, oh yeah, bishop b4, there's usually this queen a4 check, and you can win the bishop sometimes. Like sometimes if knight c6, you have this d5. And this is what I'm trying to build. Now, if you didn't get this example, don't worry. You will after you watch these videos. And we'll get to how many videos they are in a second. So this is what I want to build. This kind of language, this kind of thinking. And usually, and of course, like you need practice to develop this. But I'm just trying to offer you a bit of a shortcut. Make your life a bit easier. Make chess learning quicker. And so yeah, the first thing to think about, we talked about this. You first, like in the queen c2 bishop d3 example, you first think of knight b4, then other things. Okay, so what you will learn here, you'll learn knowledge, you'll get knowledge of which squares allow typical tactics, typical plans, etc. And we'll have a chess patterns exam to test your knowledge. And now we'll get to the structure of this video series. So of course, we'll divide these patterns into categories. Now, some patterns fit into many categories, but of course, I picked like the most important categories. So I don't want to include one pattern in several categories, so just the most important. Okay, so the structure, we first have the pattern. I show you the pattern. Then, number two, one thing to remember, for example, knight b4 against queen c2, bishop d3. The most important thing to remember when you see this pattern, what should your mind try to think of, and how the pattern plays out, like if it's a maneuver, how it happens, and if it's not, how usually it develops. And then some sample games showcasing the pattern, and then a test to test your knowledge if you understood the pattern, and if you can apply it to novel situations. And finally, look forward to the book. Yes, I have many books in the making. If some of you guys remember the Chess Principles series, that's still it's on hiatus, but it's still being produced sometimes. And of course, I wrote a novel, which you can check out. And yeah, I'm also working on hopefully a book for this. So there will be about 600 videos for this series. But this won't include all of the patterns. I already have about 2000 and growing. Not exactly 2000 though, but I have like the conceptions of some 2000 patterns. And I'm sure like I will be able to find a lot more and expand on the patterns. So a lot will change, but of course, I mean 600 patterns is more than enough to get to a very decent level, or at least to just make your chess learning much easier. So with that, I hope you guys will really like the series. It's novel. Don't see a there are of course some things here and there written about chess patterns, but nowhere near as much as there needs to be, and definitely nothing as comprehensive as this. So hopefully you enjoy the series, guys, and with that, take care and thanks for watching.